The significant changes for ISO 9001 include, point 1, the concept of the context of the organisation. Now, the context of organisation actually just sets the scene in place, or traditionally it would be included in the quality manual, or with the revision it can be done on any media. The web, notice boards, podcasts, peer presentations, anything, just show what the organisation does. It does in a sense also include capabilities, but also the specific areas of the organisation. Now, this could commonly be completed and complied with the use of a template. Now, it's not like a one-size-fits-all, but it's a template as a prompt to trigger entries to describe the context of an organisation. For example, does the organisation do design? Does the organisation employ people with multilingual skills or with English not their first language? Is there just the one customer or a few customers or thousands of customers? How many people there are? What sort of divisions there are? The structure of the organisation. So it really just sets the framework to set up the quality assurance system. So that's one of the key changes to the ISO 9000 revision. The second one is the removal of preventive action, which I guess probably a lot of people had some concerns with, even interpreting preventive action back in 2000 when the term was first introduced, if not beforehand. There was confusion to say, okay, well, you'll correct something, the actions you'll put into place to prevent that from happening again after an occurrence is preventive action. Of course, the original intent of preventive action was to prevent potential non-conformities from occurring. What the standards have done for the 2015 revision is to incorporate that in as a risk to align with the other standards, such as the HSC standard and also the environmental standard 14001. So just like within the HSC standards, which is common practice for all HSC activities, particularly job activities, there's risk assessments completed. We're in the project environment. Risk assessments are common. What are the risks of the project failing? And commonly, these areas are focused on health and safety. The intent of the standard is to incorporate risk in terms of quality. What are the quality risks? What are the risks for producing defects? Is the system set up correctly? Is there adequate training or a system with the mindset of continuous improvement? So, 1, we have defects, we have overproduction, we have wasted time, wasted resources, waiting or cycle times ineffective. The common 7 wastes which impact on quality, compliance areas, regulatory requirements, industry standards or other standards specific to the product or service that you're producing. So traditionally, risk in a product sense was documented or thought out through in line with a traditional risk assessment, or in common terminology with health and safety is what's called a job safety environmental analysis, or a JSEA. In quality, in the automotive days, that was commonly used with an FMEA template, a failure modes effect analysis template with a risk score number, controls, and then residual risks. So I feel that's probably the methodology or the tool to use to show risks. Now, some companies may actually use the complete risk management framework standard to manage their risks from the onset. With the small businesses that Kieran Associates are working at, recording risks is through a JSEA template. Rather than call it a JSEA, call it a JSEQA to add in the quality element. The third point, area of change with the standard, is documentation and records. These have now been combined to one term called documented information, and that's either documents, plans, processes, procedures, etc., or records. In other words, objective evidence. A record showing that an activity has been satisfactorily completed. So documents, the planning documents, records, the output documents that those planned activities have been achieved. The fourth area of change is that there's no mandatory requirement for any procedures in this standard. Previously, let's go right back to 1987, all systems and processes needed to be documented, and right in through to 1994. So all systems, all processes documented. So each of the elements, each of the 20 elements of the standard needed to have some sort of plan or policy documented describing the organisation's approach to satisfying those specific elements, and the more detail, of course, in terms of procedures and work instructions, and then obviously the forms to record the objective evidence. The revision in 2000, or was it 2008, required 6 procedures. With this new standard, there is no requirement for even a manual. There's no requirement for a manual to be written to show what it is when they assess your organisation. Now, a manual, of course, is useful for clients and customers and people potentially looking to buy off you, though you won't be preparing those for the standard, but they will now be prepared specifically for clients or for interested stakeholders. So no manual required and no procedures required. So if you're a small organisation, for example, and you're interested in achieving the certification, if you have intimate knowledge of the processes of the standard and your business activities, and you can demonstrate that to the auditor and also support that knowledge and information with documented evidence on jobs that you've carried out with clients, you're covered. Now, of course, one of the areas that may be slightly different, just like traditionally 25 years ago when the standard was first introduced, companies were already covering most of the standard in their business practices. Things like customer satisfaction measurement. There'll need to be a way for you to show that you are measuring customer satisfaction. Now, that may be through surveys, checklists, or phone calls, but they are extra requirements to add in to your system. So there's 4 key changes to the standard.